everyone, and welcome to episode 30 of the Knitty Heather podcast. My name is Heather, and I'm coming to you from Kent, Washington, where I live with my husband Tom and our Cavalier King Charles Spaniel Pepper. This is my podcast where I chat all about the knitting I have on my needles and everything I learn along the way. I also love to share really awesome makers that add to the beauty of our fiber community. If you are a new viewer, welcome. I'm so glad you found me. I hope you enjoy yourself. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. If you would like to follow me, I am at Knitty Heather on Instagram, and I always love seeing what people are working on and sharing on Instagram. All of the yarn and patterns and accessories I talk about will be listed and linked in the description box below. Today is Saturday, June 12th, 2021, and I have a lot to tell you about, so let's get started. Today I am wearing my Fibonacci Mobius. This is a pattern by Sarah J. Bench, and it does start with a Mobius cast on. This is the only time I've ever done a Mobius cast on, and I'll be honest, probably the last time. It was a little bit of a tricky cast on. I think it's one that if you practice, you can get it. I didn't have too much trouble putting the stitches on the needles, but knitting that first round I think was the most challenging part for me with the Mobius cast on. But this pattern just has some garter and stockinette ridges that I'm sure you could adapt to knit flat if you wanted to. I knit this back in 2013, and the yarn I used was Cascade Yarns Casablanca in the colorway Peacock. Now I do believe that yarn is discontinued, but it really looks good in a slowly variegated yarn like that. It is a wool silk mohair blend, which makes it extra warm. And this is a really nice design that you could cast on more or fewer stitches if you didn't want it quite as wide. With the Mobius cast on, it's kind of hard to gauge how wide it's actually going to be until you get going. It kind of turns out a lot wider once you actually start knitting. Mobius knitting is amazing, it's incredible, but it's something that I am definitely not smart enough to fully understand. It is really cool though to be able to have it seamless if you are brave enough to try the Mobius cast on. I love the greens and purples in this colorway. It knit up very nicely. I think I purchased this yarn up at Serial Knitters in Kirkland, Washington, years and years ago when I first started actually going to real yarn shops. And this is just an easy one to throw on with whatever you need. It's a good one to tuck in your coat in the winter, and it's just very easily wearable. If you do want to try a Mobius cast on, I highly recommend the tutorial on YouTube by Kat Bordy. She shows it and explains it extremely well. This is the Fibonacci Mobius by Sarah Jane Bench, knit up in Cascade Yarns Casablanca. Today I am also wearing a pair of self-striping socks that were knit with yarn from the Cozy Knitter. This colorway is called French Macaroon, and it was from her June 2020 Yarn of the Month Club, which is when I knit these. She also included this pretty pink mini that I use for toes, heels, and cuffs. These were knit toe up with the Fish Lips Kiss heel and about 10 rounds of 2x2 rib for the cuff. Now on to my finished objects. I have two little finished objects and a half finished object for you this time. First, my little ones. Here are two more completed baby ornament socks for my cousin's baby. Here's the first one I did. I am doing a collection of these for my cousin's baby for his first Christmas. And I'm hoping that they can have fun hanging it on the tree as he gets a little older. Maybe they can do an Advent countdown, put some treats in them for him, however they want to use them. But I think it's a lot of fun to knit these tiny little socks, and having a new baby in the family was a perfect excuse to make a little set of these. I am using the leftovers from my Legacy Fiber Arts 2020 Christmas Advent, and the pattern I'm using is the basic baby sock pattern, which is free on Ravelry by Sue Stokes of Legacy Fiber Arts. She's the dyer behind Legacy Fiber Arts, and it's just a very basic vanilla with a little slip stitch heel flap and gusset. And I added a little crochet chain for a loop so that they can hang them. I'm really happy to have 2 more of these done. I'm gonna try to, I was looking at the calendar, I kind of need to pick up the pace on these so that I can get them finished so that I can send them off in November. This is the Basic Baby Sock pattern by Sue Stokes, knit up in Legacy Fiber Arts 2020 Christmas Advent. Next is a half-finished object, my first of this pair of sleeping socks. The pattern I'm using is the Learn to Knit Socks pattern by Stacy Perry of Very Pink Knits. It is a classic worsted weight, cuff down, heel flap and gusset construction. And the yarn I used is from Crystal Skies Hand Dyed on Etsy. This was her special Harry Potter colorway for book number 2. It is called Aunt Petunia's Pudding Cake, and I think she absolutely captured the green jello and the red cherries and the little chocolate. She really captured those colors very nicely. And I love how the speckles are just really dispersed very evenly, very nice. This was such a fun colorway to knit up, and I'm excited to cast on sock number 2. I did 12 rounds of a 2x2 rib, and then 30 rounds for the leg, and then I followed the instructions for her heel flap and gusset and did 32 rounds for the foot, and then did a kind of a traditional wedge toe that she calls for in the pattern as well. This is the Learn to Knit Socks pattern by Stacy Perry of Very Pink Knits, knit up in Aunt Petunia's Pudding Cake by Crystal Skies Hand Dyed. On to my works in progress. I have lots of socks on the needles for Summer Sock Camp 2021. First is my pair of Desert Vista Dye Work socks. I have it in my Summer Sock Camp bag from Carrie of Stolen Minutes on Etsy, and I have my Summer Sock Camp pin from Crazy Sock Lady Designs on Etsy. I am double dipping in Summer Sock Camp and the 7th annual Desert Vista Dye Works knit along. So this will be my June pair of socks for the 7th annual Desert Vista Dye Works monthly sock club. The colorway I am using is Summer Sock Camp 2021 by Desert Vista Dye Works. This progress keeper is the Summer Sock Camp logo from Crazy Sock Lady Designs on Etsy as well. The pattern I am using is called the Sock Camp Picnic pattern. That is by Kay Litton, the Crazy Sock Lady, who is hosting Summer Sock Camp, and it's an exclusive pattern to her VIP campers until August 1st. She will release it out to the general public. But it's a very nice textured pattern with a little bit of a twisted stitch. It's actually knitting up very beautifully in this self-striping yarn. I did the heel flap and gusset. I have decreased all of the gusset stitches, and now I am starting to knit down the foot of my first sock. I am doing these on my ChiaoGoo red lace needles, 32 inch for magic loop. Here's what the colorway looks like in the cake. This is the self-striping part. And she also has a campfire inspired mini. So what I did is I cast on actually with the mini, and I did 3 rounds of 2x2 rib. Then I finished the rest of the 20 rounds in the self-striping yarn before I went into the textured pattern. I did the textured pattern across both sides of the leg, and then I just did the heel flap and turn in the contrasting mini as well, and then reattached the main yarn for the gusset. I really can't say enough good things about this pattern. It has been so much fun to work. And hopefully by the next time I podcast, this will be a half-finished object. I'm hoping to finish the foot in the next few days, and then I will also do the toe in the contrasting mini. And I will try when I cast on sock number 2 to match up the stripes as best I can. But if they don't end up perfect, it's not going to be the end of the world. This is the Sock Camp Picnic pattern by Kay Litton, the Crazy Sock Lady, knit up in Summer Sock Camp 2021 by Desert Vista Dye Works. Now on to my Dubai socks. This is the newest pattern from Mina Phillip in her Around the World in 8 Socks collection. It's a little bit scrunched up because of the cable when it's not on a sock blocker. My Strawberry Ice Cream Bar Progress Keeper is from Sweet Cherry on Etsy. And the yarn I'm using is Lolo Did It. The contrasting color is called Drawing Room, and the main color is called Lady Sybil's Dress. This was a set from her Downton Abbey Upstairs and Downstairs Club. And this cable pattern is called Dubai Dunes. Really nice, knitting up beautifully in this yarn. I finished my German short row heel. I did just a traditional stockinette with knits and purls. And I am happily working down the foot on this first sock. I am using my Addi Turbo Sock Rockets, and I have it in my Alice in Wonderland project bag from Kitsch is the New Black on Etsy. I've got a few more pattern repeats to go down on the foot, and then I will use the contrasting mini for the toe as well. This has been another really fun pattern from this collection. They are all so beautiful. Mina is such a talented designer, and she really puts so much thought and detail into all of her patterns. Any of her sock patterns are extremely well written and would be really good patterns for anyone to try. I'm hoping to have this as a half-finished object next time I podcast as well. I just have a little bit down the foot and the toe to finish. That shouldn't take too much longer. This is the first of my Dubai socks by Mina Phillip, the Knitting Expat, knit up in Lolo Did It Drawing Room and Lady Sybil's Dress. Next, I'd like to tell you about my newest pair of socks from the Cozy Knitter. This was her March colorway from her Yarn of the Month Club, and it is called Pinata. My S'mores Progress Keeper is from Pitter Patter Polymer on Etsy, and I have it in my Mary Poppins project bag from Fangirl Fibers on Etsy. Here's what it looks like in the cake. I'm about to get to this really pretty pinky red color. And she also included a contrasting mini with this blue, which I used for the toes. I am doing these 2 at a time, toe up on a 40-inch. These are my Nova Platina needles. I like doing my Cozy Knitter socks 2 at a time so that I can see the stripes kind of come up together. I'm only through this yellow and almost through this orange stripe. I think these are going to be really bright and fun. I cast on 16 stitches with Judy's Magic Cast On and just kind of worked up using my wedge shape toe technique up to 32 inches on each needle. I do a 64 stitch count total all around my foot. This is her 80/20 Bliss base, which is so soft, so plump, really nice to work with and really, really comfortable to wear. I am doing just a plain vanilla sock. I will just continue knitting up the whole foot. And then I usually like to do a fish lips kiss heel. I think I'll add in a fish lips kiss heel using the contrasting mini. Keep working up the leg and then use the mini for a 2x2 rib for the cuff as well. That's sort of my recipe, especially for my Cozy Knitter socks. This is a plain vanilla sock, knit 2 at a time, toe up, using the colorway Pinata from the Cozy Knitter. Next up is my newest pair from my Yarnable subscription by Hypnotic Yarn. This colorway is called Storm Watch. Very dark and moody with a little bit of purple. Here's a better look at it in the cake. This is one of the darkest yarns I've ever worked with, but it's really pretty and I really like it. I am doing the Wyatt socks, another pattern by Kay Litton, the Crazy Sock Lady, and it kind of just has some spirally knit and purl ridges. I've only done 1 pattern repeat so far, so it's a little hard to tell at this point. Hopefully next time I will have some more progress to show you, but it's a really fun pattern. I am knitting it across the front of the sock, And it's just a little bit more interest than plain stockinette. And I thought it would work okay with this dark yarn just because it's not too detailed and won't get lost. I am using my Addi Flexi Flips on these just for something a little bit different. I haven't used these in a while. I cast on 64 stitches and I did 15 rounds of a 2x2 rib before I started the pattern. My ice cream stitch marker is from Suker Miniatures, and I have it in my Hamilton project bag from Fate's Thread. Here's what the back of this sock is looking like, just in plain stockinette. And that is what she calls for in the pattern. I believe this is one of her free patterns on Ravelry. And in this case, she just has you do kind of the spiraling texture across the front and then plain stockinette on the back. This has been a real pleasure to knit, and it's a good exercise in reading your knitting because you kind of just add one more stitch to your purl section or your knit section. So it's an easy one to kind of knit along and watch what's happening with the pattern as you're going without having to constantly refer to the written instructions. This is the Wyatt sock pattern by Kay Litton, the Crazy Sock Lady, knit up in Stormwatch by Hypnotic Yarn as part of her Yarnable box. Now on to the Brioche Cowl that I have been working on. I was able to make some pretty good progress. I switched to my Rainbow Cake Progress Keeper, so I've gotten a few more rounds done on this. I think I calculated I want to do maybe about 20 more rounds of the brioche pattern before I do the cuff in the green at the top. This is called the Channeled Colors Brioche Loop by Marcy New of the New Knittery here in Renton, Washington. I am also using a Pretty Flower stitch marker by Bump on a Hill to mark the beginning of my round. The yarn I'm using is Ella Rae Cashmerino. This green main color is called Sycamore. And I am also using Shopple edition 3 in the colorway English Garden. Here is what it's looking like with the main color showing. And as in 2-color brioche, it is reversible. So here it is on the more colorful, contrasting color side with the variegated yarn. I'm really loving how this is knitting up. I think it's a nice color combination. I think it will go with a lot of different things in my wardrobe, and I cannot wait to finish this up. Hopefully I'll be able to finish this up by the end of the month. I am kind of setting myself a goal to have this done by the end of June, but we'll see. This is a really perfect pattern to start beginner 2-color brioche. It is only 2-color brioche. No fancy increases or decreases or anything. It is just really beautiful, lets the yarn shine. And as I've said every time I talk about this cowl, 2-color brioche in the round is absolutely the best way to do it. It is only a 2-round repeat that you need to memorize, and the stitches sort of tell you, once you get used to doing brioche, the stitches sort of tell you what to do. There are lots of really good brioche tutorials out there on YouTube as well. I am using my size 8 Knitter's Pride Dreams interchangeable set with a 24-inch cord. And the project bag I have it in is this cute little dog project bag from Ryan's Marketplace on Etsy. As you can see with this variegated color, I'm getting into some more yellows and back into some greens. It's really a fun yarn to work with. This is the Channeled Colors Brioche Loop by Marcy New, knit up in Ella Rae Cashmerino and Shopple Edition 3. Last up, I'd like to tell you about my plans for using the rest of my Hue Loco Fade Advent. I am planning to knit another Scrappy Cowl and Scrappy Socks with what I have left from that Advent. I wanted to kind of keep them together since they were such a beautiful fade. So far, I have already done the Round and Round cowl, but I have also cast on just a stripy cowl. This is very similar to what I did with my Clark and Elle Advents last year from her seasonal Advents So this is just the first color. I've got 2 rounds, I think, done in the second color. As you can see, I've got plenty left of all of these, and basically the exact same amount of all of them, since I used the same amount in the original round and round cowl. But what I am doing, this is another little flower stitch marker for the beginning of the round from my little set from Bump on a Hill on Etsy. I did a provisional cast on of 90 stitches. I am using size 5 16-inch needles, and I did 12 rounds of just plain stockinette, and I am going to do 12 rounds of each color, and then hopefully it will fade. Then I will seam it all up and it will be a big loop. I sort of calculated the number of rounds based on the first cowl like this I did, and figured that with 24 Advent minis I will need to do about 12 rounds of each to have it the length that I want. Very, very pretty. It's not quite doing it justice yet with only one and then just a tiny bit of this second color, but I'm really excited to keep adding to these, and it's really fun just to do stockinette in the round. It's a very relaxing knit. I have it in my cabled knit bag from Mrs. Brown's Bags, and then in another bag from Mrs. Brown's Bags, I have my Scrappy Socks. So I am doing these in tandem. I decided to pull out my Cruella and my Lady Tremaine Progress Keepers from Fangirl Fibers from her Villain set last Halloween. I am doing these in tandem. I used a Cascade Heritage, just dark gray sock yarn for the toe, and then I think I will use an Afterthought heel. My plan is just to add 5 rounds of each color, and then I will do the last 4 colors will be enough to do 20 rounds of my cuff. So it should work out pretty much perfectly for me to do 5 rounds with each of these colors. Now this is just the first color. I won't add the second color until I'm done with the cowl, but I thought this would be a good opportunity to try my first pair of Scrappy Socks. There will be a lot of ends to weave in, but I think I will try to do that as best as I can while I am knitting them and not save them all for the end. So I look forward to showing you more progress on these in the very near future as I add more colors to it. These are my Knitter's Pride Carbons 32-inch for Magic Loop. And I'd be very interested to know, leave a comment down below, what are your methods for doing Scrappy Socks? Have you ever done Scrappy Socks? And if so, what have you done in the past that has worked well for you? What advice do you have as far as managing all the ends? Any advice you have would be greatly appreciated. So these are just a vanilla pair of Scrappy Socks and a Scrappy Loop Cowl knit up in the leftovers of my Hue Loco Fade Advent from 2020. Well, I think that's about all I have for this episode. Thank you so much for joining me and spending a little bit of time with me. I really do love talking about my knitting and hope you enjoy it too. Please don't forget to give this video a like and consider subscribing. That would really help me out so much. And as always, let me know if you have any thoughts or feedback on the podcast or any ideas you might have for new shorter subject scrap ideas. I'm hoping to do more scraps this summer. As my school is winding down these next few weeks, I should have more time to make some more content once my summer break gets going. But let me know what your thoughts are. Feel free to leave a comment down below or message me on Instagram. I am at Knitty Heather on Instagram and I would love to hear from you. But until next time, be well, be kind, and happy knitting. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.